Pleb Liquor to the Larpar Show, where we talk all about all things macro, what is money, what is coming, and how to protect yourself and your family. I'd like to introduce you to, goes by the name Plate Licking Pleb on Twitter. He has a financial background since 2015. He was orange pilled in 2020, and he helped promote the Canadian Bitcoin conference in 2022 and 2023. And so let's just jump in. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, how you found Bitcoin and how you got introduced to Bitcoin?
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess first off, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Glad to be able to promote some big event from Canada. Right, it's kind of cool across the world. Hey, but yeah, thanks. Essentially about me, background. So yeah, as you mentioned, I've been a financial advisor since 2015, and I kind of just got into that. Basically, just when you're a kid, you find a way to find a job. Okay, what industry can I make a lot of money in, right? And I think a lot of people realize instinctively that being close to the money industry is kind of being close to the money printer. So I think a lot of people get into finance for that reason. My Bitcoin journey started around the same time. I was kind of studying for school, and then I was reading books trying to learn how to pick stocks. So all the Benjamin Graham, things like that, Warren Buffett stuff. But what I did, and what was kind of by chance, is I picked up a book by accident called Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. And I was under the impression that it was about choosing stocks. So I read it, and waiting for the part about stocks to come in. But if you've ever read the book, it has nothing to do with stocks, right? He basically goes through every single area where the government is involved in our lives, and step by step explains why the government can't do it well and why it would be better left in the hands of private industry. So that was my first thought about politics or about the system we live in or anything like that. And my first time questioning, okay, maybe our current system isn't the best way of doing things. So I think that laid the foundation for why Bitcoin really spoke to me when I did find it, 5-6 years later. So I'm working as a financial advisor. It was 5 years helping people retire, helping people pay less in tax, helping people invest, things like that. And then 5 years later, I realized I never actually even understood money in the first place, right? I first bought Bitcoin before I knew anything about it, just because an app on my phone started offering it, and I thought, okay, I might as well toss $100 into to Bitcoin and see what happens. But that was October of 2020. So if you have a chart in front of you, started to go up pretty fast right away, right? So it was like instantly that $100 was 105. I'm used to my mutual funds making 5% per year, not per day, right? So instantly I was kind of intrigued, and I said, okay, well, that's it must be something to it if I'm making money this fast. So then I kind of went down the the YouTube train, watching all different stuff. I never did too much shitcoining, fortunately. I owned a little bit of ETH, but then got out of that pretty quick. It was only 4 months later that I read the Bitcoin Standard. Safe to say, as soon as I was done reading that book, I sold all my ETH, pretty much sold all my stocks instantly. And then it was kind of full on Bitcoin maximalism from there. And it really clicked to me, not because only on the finance side and the inflation hedge and the opportunity for capital appreciation and everything like that, but it hit me because it's like, okay, this is a way that we can actually change things in the world, right? I had been pretty disenfranchised from our conservative government in Canada, right? They were basically the same as the Liberal Party in Canada. The politicians that I followed and tried to support, who I thought might help things, ended up locking us in our homes, right, and mandating certain medicines for us and things like that. So finding Bitcoin, it was like, okay, maybe we can defund these guys, and maybe we can kind of take control of our own lives, take back that control once again. So that was a real big eye opener for me, and I was instantly hooked. It was basically I think it was at the beginning of 2021. It's only a couple months later. We're locked in our homes, nothing to do. Where I kind of said, okay, well, I need to meet some real life Bitcoiners, right? I don't know any Bitcoiners in real life. I'm going crazy talking to my wife about it. She's like so annoyed I'm talking to her about Bitcoin nonstop. So I just put out a tweet one day and said, hey, you know what, guys? I'm sick of not knowing any Bitcoiners in real life. I'm starting a meetup. It's going to be this date, this time, at Tahini's restaurant, which there's lots of Tahinis all around us. I don't know if you heard of them. But I said, let's do a meetup. I don't care. Anyone who wants to come can come. Bitcoin only. And then the tweet just gained a lot of traction for whatever reason, right? I think I only had like 1,000 followers or something at the time. But it gained a lot of traction, and it ended up being like an awesome meetup. It was like, I don't know, 40 people there or something like that. There's like sponsors who volunteered to cover all of our food and stuff like that. So it was kind of just, for whatever reason, the algorithm liked this idea, right? From there, that's where I met Dan and Manuela, and they are the main organizers of the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. And they basically approached me and just said, hey, we have this idea where we want to do the Bitcoin conference, but the Canadian version, right? At that point, there was no real Bitcoin only conference in Canada. There's been, probably five other big ones in the States and elsewhere at that time, but nothing in Canada, right? So Dan is a Bitcoiner. His wife Manuela is an event planner by trade. And they kind of said like, okay, let's do this, but we need help. We need someone to help us promote it. We need someone who knows some people in the Bitcoin space. So they asked me, and it kind of just started from there. And we started planning. We had our first event last year or I guess this year still. This year in June. It kind of surpassed all of our expectations. There's about, I think, 375 people there, ticket sales or something like that. And just huge speakers, right? Everybody wanted to help out Canada. I like to say that Canada has a lot of awesome Bitcoiners. And I think it's like a 1-to-1 ratio of tyrannical government to awesome Bitcoiners, right? The more tyranny you have with your government, the more lockdowns, the more bank account freezing and everything like that, the more Bitcoiners pop up. It's like acceleration theory in real life practice. So it ended up being an awesome event, right? We had Greg Foss there, Lawrence Lepard, Stefan Livera, tons of people. Francis Pulio from Bull Bitcoin, they were a head sponsor. We had CoinKite there, Crypto Mags, BTC Sessions. It's just awesome. Everybody wanted to come help out. So really, we want to build on that this year, right? We changed the location. It was Toronto. This year we're going into Montreal. And essentially we just want to grow, right? The venue that we're in now, you should check it out if you can. It's the Rialto Theater, RIALTO. But it's over 100 years old, and it's like some amazing low time preference architecture. Like you got to see it. Montreal is one of the oldest cities in Canada.
Share your screen there. If there's any pictures of it, you can find it out there. Yeah, share your screen there. You can show the viewers here. I'll let you share it there.
Oh, yeah, it's disabled. Wait a sec.
Yeah, go ahead there.
All right, let's see.
Good for people to see a few visuals, But it's in a theater this year, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. The Rialto holds like closer to 11 or 1,200 people, right? So I don't know if we'll be able to actually fill it up there, but we're going to try and get as close as we can, right? You can see it there. Look at the ceilings on there.
Beautiful.
But basically the idea is to build, right? We're making it more of a 3-day event this time, whereas last time it was 1.5. We're going to be having the first Canadian Bitcoin film festival, right? So we have Luke Broyles, who's making his movie. We have a couple other filmmakers who are putting together Bitcoin movies, and we're going to be airing them for the first time ever there in Montreal for the conference. Lots of other things that are in the works. Not a ton I can announce yet, right? Just don't want to do too much now. Pen ink is on paper for contracts and things like that. But yeah, you can see it here. I don't know. What do you think?
Beautiful venue. Beautiful venue. Really, really is.
Yeah, I'm really excited to
Spectacular.
see it. Yeah, there's the main room, which is what you're seeing pictures of, and then there's like almost looks like a comedy bar for like a breakout session room, and we're gonna have a bunch of vendors and art and different things you can buy Bitcoin with or for in the lobby. Basically, we're trying to make it like a giant meetup, right, with great content as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the venue looks magnificent anyway. To go down it, it's great, And if you got those up in numbers last year, you should get close to maybe 700 or 800 this year. If you promote it properly with all the buzz going out there and everything. That's the show we seen from our event in Ireland that we were doing in Ireland, and we're all in Dublin, and we have been for the last 2 years. So amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I've never actually been to the venue. I live about 4 hours away from there. I can't wait to check it out. Yeah, we're really hoping to get the numbers up. The reason for the change in location, we had a lot of requests to move to Montreal. That's the home of Bull Bitcoin, who's our head sponsor.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners out that way. Toronto is also extremely expensive, so we're able to knock about $100 off the ticket price by moving to Montreal as well.
Cool.
So I think that's we want plebs to be there. My name's Plate Licking Pleb. We want to support the plebs. Bitcoin's for everybody. We don't want to be an exclusive pay to play, pay for access type of event. So we're trying to make it as affordable as possible.
Yeah, very good, very good. And let's go back there a little bit, okay? You were saying a little bit about some people know like kind of what happened last year with all the with the truckers and all that happened last year, and the way like overnight people were just singled out and they were just their bank accounts were closed and stuff like that. Can you just go into a little bit about that? What actually happened down there?
Yeah, so actually interesting. We're likely going to have a panel of the Bitcoiners who are involved in taking the Bitcoin donations. I don't know if you remember hearing about that on Twitter or on the news, but basically, for whatever reason, it was the truckers who became fed up with all the mandates. Right in Canada, we had it pretty bad. Right, you kind of needed your vaccines, or you weren't allowed into a restaurant. Right, a lot of people lost their jobs. So the trucking industry kind of rallied together and said, okay, well, this isn't right. What can we do? And there was just these massive convoys from all across Canada, all headed to Ottawa, which is our capital city. That's where Justin Trudeau lives and where all the the lawmakers live. I don't remember the numbers, but it was like, I'm going to guess tens of thousands.
It was big.
Hundreds of thousands of trucks. All going down there, right? And they were blocking also bridges and border crossings and things like that, really to get their point across. But essentially, what the government at that time did was they said, okay, this is an emergency, right? You're blocking borders. The downtown area of Ottawa is not functional anymore, right? There's trucks everywhere, right? It was completely peaceful, right? There was no vandalism. There was nothing. There was like bands playing. There was like jumping castles and hot tubs and stuff like that. Like it was peaceful. They were just hanging out and having a good time and being good to each other. But the government at that time, basically, they're in a tough situation because they don't want to fold, right? They can't show that, okay, well, if you have a big enough protest, we'll change our policies and admit that maybe COVID isn't worth all this anyways. So what they did is they invoked what was called the Emergencies Act, and that's basically some law that had been used before under really serious, like basically terrorist circumstances in the past. I believe around 30 years ago, where they said, okay, we're allowed to do whatever we want right now. Basically, all your rights are suspended and put on hold until we get this problem taken care of. So they actually just started freezing people's bank accounts, right? So they froze truckers' bank accounts so that way they couldn't eat if they were down there, right? And they were kind of forced to go home, right? They did that, and then they sent in, the RCMP and the police to actually go in and use force to get everybody out of there, even though it was a peaceful protest, right? Which normally peaceful protest is encouraged in a free country. So they did that. Lots of people had their bank accounts frozen. So this is where there was donations, right? So millions of dollars, people were donating dollars and fiat to these truckers so that they could, keep their trucks running, eat food, because they're not working while they're here, right? Taking time off work to do that. That all got seized, right? Basically, the any dollars that were donated all got seized. The truckers saw no dollars. What didn't get seized was the Bitcoin, right? Because people made basically like a multi-sig setup, and it was some people. I think it was Greg Foss, it was BTC Sessions, BJ Dichter, Nick Caribou, basically a bunch of people who kind of administered these funds together. And it was the only stuff that didn't get seized, right? So I don't know the details on how it kind of went down from there, but that's actually what we're having a panel on at the conference this year, is to get the real story from the horse's mouth on how it all went down. Yeah. So that should definitely be a really interesting one. But the moral of the story is that even though the government didn't want to admit that they were folding under this pressure, vax passports went away immediately after. Lockdowns went away immediately after, right? So it was a real scary time. I had a lot of unvaccinated family members who were like about to leave the country because they didn't want, their property to be stolen. But I think what the truckers did really saved a lot of people and, saved Canada from communism a little while longer.
Yeah. It was very, very interesting. We were watching it very closely all the way over here from in Ireland. A lot of people around the world were watching it as well to see what was going on. But it just shows, what can actually be done. A lot of people in Europe and in the Americas, probably North America, haven't seen what can really be done compared to a lot of other countries, how your property can be seized, your bank accounts can be seized. But I think there's big changes coming, and we can all see it creeping in the back door. So people really need to protect themselves, over the next few years. Yeah, that's what I can see anyway. A lot of other people can't see that, but I think a lot of the Bitcoiners can see what's coming.
Yeah, it's big for just the name and theme of your show. How to protect yourself and your family. It's like, okay, one of the main ways to protect your family is to make sure that they can still eat and that you have the money to feed them, right? Yeah. It's hard to do when your bank account's frozen, right? It's a lot easier to do when your money is uncensorable, right? So I love that part of your show.
Thank you. And then I've been hearing, I've seen online there as well. Is there a new candidate coming up? Is the election on next year or something like that in Canada? Is there, or the year after?
I think it's the year after. I to be honest, I don't follow it as much as I used to. Yeah. I've been let down by politicians that kind of seemed good and then weren't quite what they said they were. At the end of the day, politicians are always just doing what they can to get votes, right? Yeah. So they will oppose and be opposition for as much as the polling helps them. Says that it's good for their their election chances. We do have an up and comer. His name is Pierre Polyev, and basically he has been pro Bitcoin in the past. He had kind of a famous little election campaign stop where he went to a Tahini's and he made a speech about monetary history in Canada. He paid for a shawarma with Bitcoin. Was really vocal about it. Then what happened is the price of Bitcoin went down big time, right? And then so all the liberals and Justin Trudeau, they used that against him for a long time. And they said, oh, if you had taken Pierre's advice, you would have lost half your life savings. That's not a responsible leader and things like that. So he's completely hasn't mentioned it since, right? Because he found, okay, this is easy ammo for them. I can't rally behind something like that right now. A lot of people think that, okay, once the halving comes, once we hit all-time highs again, that he'll bring it back and start, rubbing it in their faces this time. I don't really see that happening. I think that he's realized, okay, it's a volatile asset. Politics is all about speaking in sound bites that the biggest portion of the population can understand, right? Because you can't rally behind an idea if you can't understand it. And then the sad reality of our our time that we're alive is people don't listen if it's anything longer than a 10-second soundbite. I don't know if you've ever tried to orange pill someone. You can't really talk about Bitcoin in less than like 3 hours,
Yeah,
right?
true. Yeah,
Like
you need a
anything
bit of
less than,
time.
yeah, people get the wrong idea, or they focus on the wrong things and things like that, right? So it's too much for a politician to campaign on Bitcoin. Um, Pierre has said a lot of things that are really inspiring, and that get you excited about a leader that's going to be fiscally responsible and actually care about the taxpayers, and potentially harden our money up a little bit, or bring us to a hard money standard. But I think people have to remember that people talk a lot, and then once they get into power, they do whatever they can to stay in power, right? And usually they can't get a lot done anyways. So I don't put any of my hope in politicians or politics, right? I focus on Bitcoin and what I can change. I made a tweet the other day as a famous quote, and it's basically yesterday I was clever, so I tried to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I just focus on changing myself. I think a lot of Bitcoiners kind of go that way, and improving their diets and their health, and their own homes and family life, and getting fit and in shape. I think it's much more important to focus on that aspect. I think worrying about politicians is a good way to set yourself up for heartbreak.
Yeah, and get gray hair. You can't change the system. I don't think the system can ever really be changed because, as we know, well, the people that have done their work, it's not the politicians in the front end, it's the people on the back end that's controlling everything, really. Yeah. So the front end changes every 4 to 8 years, but the back end never changes.
Yeah.
So you're correct. Yeah, it's about protecting yourself and protecting your family, isn't it? And learning how to protect yourself as well, from really what's coming, and there's a lot of big things coming, very soon. It's sooner, I think, rather than later. Yeah, that's great insight there into that. Yeah. And then what about in general in Canada itself? How's Bitcoin adoption going on? Is there many merchants taking Bitcoin? Many meetups and stuff like that?
So no one really accepts Bitcoin. I haven't seen it anywhere really, right? We have a very complicated income tax act that makes it very tough for merchants to accept Bitcoin, based on reporting, right? And then based on when they actually spend it themselves or convert it to Canadian dollars. It's basically you got to worry about your capital gain or your capital loss every time you do so. And what was the price of Bitcoin in Canadian dollars at the time of a point of sale, right? And keeping track of all that, converting back to dollars and reporting it all that way. So I haven't seen any merchants, right? But I think as far as meetups and events and Bitcoiners in general, we're very, very strong. There's got to be, 6 meetups in Canada, right? Every major city, you look it up on Twitter, just type the name of the city and put Bitcoin meetup. There is one, right? I think there's like 5 in Vancouver alone. Vancouver is one of our biggest cities, but there's a lot of meetups there. And when you host a meetup, there's a lot of people there, right? You're always looking at 30 people who want to come, and it's a lot of great Bitcoiners too, right? The people who are working on things and who are building, whether it's a YouTube channel or a small companies that are with Bitcoin products or things like that, right? We have great companies too. It's like CoinKite, Bull Bitcoin, right? So all these people are Canadian, and I think that is part of the reason why so many people do get into Bitcoin here, because they dip their toes in, and then they say, "Oh, BT Sessions is from Canada. Oh, NVK is Canadian," right? It's pretty inspiring.
Yeah. Well, it has to start somewhere, I suppose, first, and that as we all say, I mean, gradually, then suddenly, but I think myself, the whole narrative now for what's going to happen probably in January with the ETF. You know, now I know you have an ETF over there already as well. Do you know much about that? And have you looked much into the ETF that's coming since you're in the financial
I think
background?
what was the last thing you said? Sorry.
I said since you like have a bit of a financial background, like
Yeah. So I think we actually have like 5 ETFs, a couple different companies that offer them with different, slightly different structures and fee points and things like that. But they're good, right? It's if it's someone who can't or won't self custody, right? It's kind of like the next best thing, right? You're getting some of the advantages of Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin has NGU technology, number go up technology, right? And that's, for a lot of people, that's the entry point. That's what they first are intrigued about. That's what they want to hear about. So it's kind of like if you ever hear about like a sales funnel, where you have the first thing that draws people in, and then as they learn a little more and as they get a little more deeper down the rabbit hole, then they graduate to other things. So I think ETF is good for people kind of at the top of that funnel, right?
yeah.
Once the number does go up, they might be inspired to learn more about Bitcoin and say, okay, why is it going up? Through that, they learn about, self-custody, right? Being sovereign, borderless, right? Immutable, inconfiscatable, things like that. And then I think those people will move from the ETF into self-custody, right? And that's where Bitcoin really has its biggest benefits. And that's actually what helps the network the most too, right? We don't want everybody owning an ETF because it just opens up the doors for rehypothecation and for general rug pulls, right? I have a bet going with some friends that we're going to see a major Bitcoin ETF rug pull its customers by 2030. I don't know what that will look like, but my bet is yes, that will happen, right? I hope it's BlackRock, so that can be like the final boss for us. But I think it will be really good for adoption, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely will. Especially as well with when you see the players that are getting involved in it with the BlackRock, Fidelity. BlackRock controls everything. They control the media, they control the newspapers. Like to see the whole narrative changing out there, especially as well. You could recently see as well this year with that KPMG report that was written about the ESG. I'm sure there was something there from BlackRock that kind of helped with that report that came out.
Yeah, I think something that people don't realize about BlackRock too, because everyone kind of tosses around that number. They say, "Oh, BlackRock manages 10 trillion," right? They're the biggest fund manager. What they don't realize is BlackRock has their active asset allocation algorithm, basically software algorithm called Aladdin. And it's a little bit more under the hood. Not a lot of people know about it. But if you look at the AUM of Aladdin, it's closer to like 20 million, right? Because they act as sub-advisor for different, fund managers all around the world.
20 trillion.
Yeah.
20 trillion. Yeah, the 20 million there. Yeah, 20 trillion for just the folks at home.
Yeah. So it's a lot, right? And you don't see people talking about that number. And basically what that, kind of algorithm does is it will stress test everything, right? Okay, what if interest rates go up in the EU, but they go down in the US and they stay steady in Japan, right? It kind of does these stress tests. I think it does something like 6,000 stress tests weekly. So if this thing has access to a Bitcoin product, right? And it could see, okay, Bitcoin goes up every 4 years, whether it's high interest rates, low interest rates, rising interest rates, falling interest rates. I think they're going to be recommending an allocation to a lot more people than people really realize. So I think it's bigger than people think, right? So for this cycle, all that capital inflow is huge. But I think what's even bigger is of how many people who right now turn their noses up at Bitcoin and say, "Oh, Bitcoin is just it's a digital tulip," right? Things like that. When they see it in their portfolio and they see that it's the best performing piece of their portfolio, and now all of a sudden their financial advisor is trained to speak about it favorably rather than shit on it. I think a lot of people will be inspired to investigate self-custody, and I think that's really the bigger bullish aspect of the ETF and of BlackRock being involved. We've definitely seen that happen in Canada too. A lot of people go from the ETFs to keeping their real Bitcoin, but on an exchange, to taking self-custody.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize as well. Last year, BlackRock opened up a Bitcoin private fund. That's what they had last year, or it could even started in 2021. So they probably have Aladdin in there working on all the data already. So they probably know already. They have this. There is a BlackRock private fund that they have at least a year now. So it's been tested, I'd say, or stress tested in there already, and they've ran their numbers. And for people to think that these people don't know what they're doing, these have floors of people probably working on this, and it's not too far away. I don't think so anyway,
Yeah, I didn't actually know that either.
Yeah, they did, yeah. Go and check out BlackRock Private Fund. Okay, it's called the Bitcoin Private Fund or something like that. So there's not
Are they
much
actually their clients, some of them?
Pardon?
Are they actually offering it to their clients?
They have a private fund. So whether they bought a lot of it themselves, or maybe some of their clients and close people, they maybe raised around and they bought some, but it's a private fund. You can't really get into it. There's not much information about it, but it's there. And I guarantee you there's a whole lot of Bitcoin in that. And they've been testing it. And they have that algorithm, Aladdin. That's been well plugged in there probably since it started.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think they're far ahead than most people think. And what I can see as well in the future, it'll probably be a good thing for Bitcoin. I think regarding the adoption of it, I can see BlackRock being the biggest Bitcoin holder after year one out of everybody.
Yeah.
And who's the biggest Bitcoin holder at the moment?
This is Satoshi?
Yeah, 1 million coins.
Wow.
I can see them going over that in the first year.
That would be awesome.
From data that I have anyway, and what I'm looking at, and why wouldn't it? They want to control everything. If they want to have a bigger slice of the pie, that's what they're going to do. They're going to go out there and buy the Bitcoin. So
what do you think about? I saw something where it's like, okay, BlackRock, and then like several other of the people who applied for ETFs, all using Coinbase for custody. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. Yeah. So there's 12 applications being put in now in America. The majority of them are using Coinbase, and it's going to be an interesting one. But in the end of the day, BlackRock owns Coinbase as well. They have a majority shareholding in Coinbase. So for the last couple of years, they've been lining themselves up. They are probably the biggest investor in 5 or 6 of the top mining companies. They're investing in banks, custodian holding banks. They're probably the biggest shareholder now in Coinbase. One of the biggest shareholders. So they're lining themselves up. Definitely.
That will be the giant rug pull of rug pulls. They'll rug pull their ETF, Coinbase, everybody, and just run away with all the big.
Except for the people that have it in self-custody.
Yeah. That's why it's so right.
So important. But that being said, the people that are institutional investors, I don't think a lot of them have they don't want the self-custody. They've been trusting the likes of BlackRock for 10, 20, 30 years. They trusted the likes of Fidelity for all these years. They're happy to just sit there and click, boom. Boom, click. That's all they need to do. I'll pick up the phone. I see that you're doing this ETF, or getting a phone call from the reps in all these big ETF companies and say, okay, we have this ready now. Do you want to just move a little bit? And these people like moving 10, 20 million, 100 million is nothing to them. That's the type of money we're going to start see coming in. Like, not even millions, billions are going to come into it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's going to be so easy. Like with the likes of us, we have to upload our money onto whatever you're onto Swan or Coinbase or whatever like that. Wait a few days. These people just have to click. They can move from one ETF to the other ETF just with a click of a button. There's a tsunami coming.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm really excited to just see how everything actually plays out and what the price action is going to be like this cycle, and just the what crazy things are we going to see. Like I remember last cycle, it's like, holy crap, El Salvador is making it legal tender. This is a country making it legal tender. It's like just blows your mind at the time. And then it's like, okay, Tesla just bought whatever it was, 1.5 billion or something. The kind of stuff just blows your mind. So like if in the past, every cycle has gotten a little bit more real in as far as things like that go. So I just can't wait to see what next cycle is going to have in store for us, because we know about BlackRock and the ETFs. What's brewing right now that we don't know about? It's gonna be an interesting couple of years.
And even when the likes of these corporations really start getting in, like PayPal, Google, Apple. I think Apple have something like 160 billion just sitting on their balance sheet. So what's it to them to put like 3 or 4 billion into Bitcoin? Nothing. With a click of a button. Just move it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing stopping companies from doing that now is just public perception, right? Because like if
but
you know,
and being able to do it as well, because a big company like that, are they going to trust? Who are they going to trust with the private keys and access to the Bitcoin? You know, like if you're a shareholder, would you allow your CFO have access to $10 billion worth of Bitcoin with 24 words?
Yeah, it's like the custody solutions and everything like that. I think the way I always think about that is if I'm like a big Apple investor, right, but I know nothing about Bitcoin. Let's say I'm 70 years old or 65 years old. I own, whatever, 1 million shares of Apple. If they're all of a sudden diversifying their balance sheet into, from treasuries into Bitcoin, I'm going to think that the company's gone crazy, right? Like if they do that right now and I know nothing about Bitcoin, it's going to, I'm going to lose a lot of confidence in Apple for doing something like that. So I think the biggest thing that can happen to really start that inflow of, corporate treasury money and corporate balance sheets and things like that is just the slow change of public perception. So the ETF is really the first step of that, right? Because now people see, okay, Bitcoin isn't that crazy. It's in my 401k, right? Or it's in my RSP. And then that just kind of shifts over time, right? And when Tesla is like, okay, everyone knows Elon Musk is, kind of out there, right? He's not, does things outside the box a lot, right? As soon as someone who's perceived as a little more straight-laced and a little more by the book starts diversifying into Bitcoin, then that changes that public perception. So I'm really intrigued to see who's going to be doing it first and who's going to follow suit. And especially now that's possible. I don't know if you're familiar with the accounting changes that are coming into effect next year.
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit actually, because I was only talking to somebody about that today actually. Yeah. So how does that actually work? Is it, you just go into, I know that it's a December 2024, but can they start from December 2024 or can they start from January? Or can they start like now buying the Bitcoin, or how does it work?
So my understanding is just that the reporting requirements change for any companies that are reporting after December 15th, I believe it is, of 2024. So they can do whatever they want in the meantime. Just if they have to report before that date, they have to use the old standards of reporting, which isn't as favorable. To be honest, I don't know much about the details. But if they report after that date, then they can use these new standards, which looks a lot better from a public markets perspective. It actually is reported closer to reality, right? Because right now they treat Bitcoin as, what do they call it? Some sort of intellectual capital or something, or like do you know what it is? How they treat it now?
No, not really, no.
Sorry. But basically it's not treated as an asset from an accounting purpose right now. It's
Okay.
treated more as like almost like an idea or a brand or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, we had to get a better expert than me on this one.
No, we're just having a yap. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but that is going to be interesting anyway, and it's gonna be, I think, a bit of a game changer for companies and corporations buying it, and that's probably why a lot of listen, the mechanisms haven't been set up and the processes haven't been set up for institutions and corporations to come in and buy Bitcoin. As soon as this ETF is in, that's one part of the puzzle fixed. You know what I mean? This accounting thing that they're doing as well, that's another part of the puzzle. So we can see it all lining up. The institutions are coming in, they're all coming, you know what I mean? And it's just going to be a tsunami coming in. I think at the moment there's something like 25 to 30 million a day being spent on Bitcoin per day. Somebody's working out some calculations. Once the ETF comes online, we're talking about 150 minimum a day coming into Bitcoin. So what do you think is going to happen with everything? It's all just supply and demand. You know what I mean? At the moment, the supply is here, the demand is here. Okay. When the ETF comes, the demand is here. You know what I mean? And the supply goes down.
Yeah. I think what's most beautiful about all of it, and just the cherry on top, is that the plebs had 15 years to stack ahead of time before any of this came to fruition. That's like one of my favorite parts about Bitcoin. Is just it's such a grassroots movement. It's like the true bootstrap grassroots movement, because it's just anybody who decided to take the time to be open-minded enough to learn about it, right? And then had the conviction and the bravery to keep on putting money into it and keep on building it. They're rewarded huge, right? And it's so awesome that you didn't need to be rich to get into Bitcoin, right? You could start with $1, and people who start with $1 are rich now, right? And it's only goes bigger from there. So it's just awesome that the fact that it started as a tiny, non-existent network, and that it was this new phenomenon, excluded all the big boys from the start, right? So it's like kind of just beautiful, and that's part of why my name is actually the pleb, is just because I love that movement so much, and just the fact that it's the plebs rising up against the elites, right? And only now are the elites realizing, okay, we kind of have to get in on this, right? We tried to just ignore it and hope it went away. That didn't work. We got to get our fingers in this now before we're left too far behind.
Yeah, definitely. And what I can see as well coming as well, there's going to be like a generational wealth shift coming as well. Because if people are strong enough to hold this for maybe another 10 years, 5-10 years, it's going to change our lives completely. Now everybody has different scenarios and different things what they want to do in their own lives, but the people that hold and hold fast for the next couple of years, it will create generational wealth. And a lot of people still don't understand that. You know what I mean? About this generational wealth change that's coming, and the huge shift with new types of currencies coming, new types of money, the fiat system. The world is changing. We're going into a digital era now. Everything's being digitalized. We went for the last couple of years, it has been happening, but I think from 2025 onwards, it's just gonna go so fast and so hard that most people, most people are gonna get left behind on it. With all this AI and machine learning, what's happening. I think Jeff Boots wrote a very interesting book there, and he was saying that there's something like 100 years of change going to happen from 2025 to 2035. 100 years of change.
I agree. So he's also Canadian, by the way. But I think there's a big disconnect with Bitcoiners. It's kind of funny when you think about it, because pretty much every serious Bitcoiner that you talk to accepts that, okay, living in a hyper Bitcoinized world is inevitable. It's going to happen eventually. There's going to be, at least a world reserve currency, if not the one world currency. But then you ask them what they think the timeline will be like, and they're like, okay, well, maybe 30 years. But I don't think people realize, like, okay, everything we've talked about already, right? The institutional FOMO, everything like that. But then just demographic changes, right? I've been told about this concept for the past 9 years in the money business. They've been saying, okay, the biggest intergenerational wealth transfer in all of history is about to occur in the next 15 years, right? Because all the baby boomers who have accumulated all the assets and all the money and are the richest generation in history, they're all going to die in the next 15 years, right? And then who's going to get their money is their kids, right? Who is more comfortable with a natively digital currency, right? A baby boomer or their children, right? Every time I see on Twitter someone posts, oh, big announcement, my wife's pregnant, or here's our new baby, right? It gets so many likes, so much engagement, so many retweets. What I always like to comment is I just say that next generation plebs are not priced in, right? Have you ever seen a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and their parents give them the iPad, right? They open it right up, they'll go over to a game, and they know exactly how to use this thing. If you give that iPad to Warren Buffett, he has no clue he doesn't even know how to open the thing, right? Whereas a 2-year-old knows exactly what to do. Because the new generations are more comfortable with technology, they're more comfortable with natively digital currency, right? But people underestimate that big time. Just the fact that the people who control everything now are the ones who don't like Bitcoin, don't understand it, don't like technology, don't like the internet, right? Aren't comfortable with that stuff. As they pass away, the younger people are the ones inheriting everything, whether it's the money, the control, right? The positions of, political influence, everything like that. It's all just shifting to people who are more likely to be comfortable with Bitcoin and more likely to store their wealth in Bitcoin. So when people say, okay, yeah, 30 years until we live in a hyper Bitcoinized world, I would bet it's closer to 3 than 30. I'm
to
saying,
be honest, yeah, to be honest, so would I. This thing is moving so fast, and it is, because I've tested it with a few different things now. Yeah, with Bitcoin compared to like property and other things that I've done before, and this is just eating it all up so fast. Things that I've done for like 15 years, I can achieve that in 1 year with Bitcoin growth. That's madness.
Yeah. I think things are changing a lot faster than Bitcoiners admit. It's hard to visualize change. People have a hard time picturing a totally different world, or a world where, the government doesn't steal 30% of your income plus, 5% via inflation every single year. People can't visualize that because they've had it their whole life. Their parents have had it their whole life. But it's possible, and I think it's coming a lot quicker than people think.
Yeah, especially with all the young kids and all the games that kids play. My kids could be up there playing games. They're buying swords. They see value in those things, shields, all this type of stuff. Someone told me about a sword or a shield 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I'd be saying, oh yeah, whatever, that's for the kids. They're in there already. They've got all their, all these masks that the what do you call them again? The Facebook thing. All these headsets and all that they're using already. Of course, digital money to them is going to be like, they're all going around just tapping anyway. They all got Apple Pay. That's all they want to use. You give the kids a bit of cash and they're saying, what's that for? You know what I mean? How do I use that? I have to put that in my pocket. I have my phone.
My hope. So I have young kids. I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. My hope is that they never have to touch fiat. Hopefully by the time they're, spending their own money, when they're 10 or 11 or whatever, buying toys, I hope by then they can just pay with Bitcoin and we live in a more fair and equal world. But we'll see. Well, it depends on how big we can get the Canadian Bitcoin conference, how big we can get the Ireland Bitcoin conference, right? To spread the word.
Yeah, that's what it's about, all right. That's what it's about. Yeah. Our youngest now, okay, he's only 2, okay, and everything that we say for him is in sats.
That's awesome.
All his money, his birthday money, his Christmas money, all whatever he gets, it just goes into sats. So imagine getting 21.
Yeah, I like to say when people are we have a new Bitcoiner baby born or whatever, I like to say just put away 1,000,000 sats, because I think if you're born today, 1,000,000 sats that'll be enough for your whole college education, right? Probably down payment or your whole first house, right?
Yeah.
It's 18
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
People laugh, but I think it's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. People do laugh. And years ago when people were giving out 10,000 Bitcoin or 5,000 Bitcoin and flinging it all around because there's no value in it. Imagine that. Remember them first 2 pizzas that were bought for 10,000 Bitcoin? What's it worth now? $43,000, $430 million for 2 pizzas today.
Yeah.
13 years ago.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the same thing in the future, if not more. Probably a hell of a lot more.
I think more, right? Because that was only whatever 10,000 people using the network, right? As that grows, it's like an exponentially larger amount of money flowing into this thing, and so I think it's going to be more, right? Those pizzas will be like worth all the current wealth of the earth today.
Yeah. Or people there just giving out people like say 10,000 satoshis, showing them how to use wallet of Satoshi or something like that. Maybe all of that, and I'd be saying to people now, in a few years, that'll buy you a nice car, and people will be looking at me. Yeah, right. Probably will though.
Yeah. I've given away so many satoshis for stupid things. I'm gonna be like kicking myself so hard in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's all for a good cause though, but we probably will be kicking ourselves in a few years.
Yeah, I got lots left too, so it should be okay.
Yeah. And we can keep on stacking what we have to do. I've come to the thing now. There's no point in me saving anything in anything anymore. I mean, it's just sats. That's it. That's what I save in. Once you do your work, that's what you realize, isn't it?
Yeah. I get a lot of funny looks around the office. If people ever ask me about my portfolio or my allocation, I say, "Oh, I have 100% Bitcoin allocation." It's like my boss looks at me, he's like, "What the hell?" And it's like, "Yeah, you should look into it."
Yeah. Here, let's talk a little bit about that, okay? Because a few of my friends, right, I'm more or less like that way you were as well, with allocation, everything's nearly gone into it. But a lot of people are still diversifying, even if they're still in Bitcoin. And some friends of mine are still diversifying. I say, why are you diversifying? I mean, we've found something here that is eating everything. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe? Why people still feel they need to diversify?
Yeah. So I think that there's 2 answers to that question. So one is kind of the boring one, is just that based on life circumstance, sometimes you can't be all in on Bitcoin. I have to explain this to people on Twitter all the time. If you're 72 years old, you have $150,000 to your name. After your pension, you need an extra $25,000 per year, right? And you only have $150,000, right? You have to make that last as long as possible, and you have to get 25,000 from it. If all of a sudden we're in a bear market and your whole portfolio drops by 80,000 or 80%, and now you still need 25,000 in order to pay the bills and to eat, you're destitute in like 1 year, right? So there's that boring answer, is that some people need to diversify just because they're currently retired and need their money, right? I think the more the answer that you're looking for is, okay, if you're 40 years old and you're 25 years away from retirement, why would you diversify? I think the answer there is it's just a lack of understanding, right? People diversify to dull the pain of a losing position, right? Of a position that ends up going to zero or goes down and never really comes back up and just kind of stagnates for decades. So I think it's a lack of understanding, because if you know Bitcoin and you understand Bitcoiners and the halving cycle and the fact that there are a million plebs around the world who spend less than they earn and throw the difference into Bitcoin and are agnostic of price, and then the supply gets cut in half every 4 years, and as government gets more tyrannical, there's just more and more demand for something that can't be taken away or inflated away. If you understand that, and you know that about the decentralization of the nodes, right, and that only one node has to survive the atomic blast for the whole network to still survive, right? If you understand that, then there's no reason to diversify. So I would say that any friends who still have, some stocks or some bonds or some gold or anything like that, if they are sufficiently far enough away from retirement, it's just lack of understanding. They think like, oh yes, it has done really well, but that doesn't guarantee future performance. In my mind, I think it does guarantee future performance. I can't say that at work because otherwise I'll lose my license. But I think it's a guarantee. I can't really see any situation where we don't get good performance, right? Better than anything else. Maybe a coordinated state attack where, okay, the EU, Japan, the States, Canada, all these governments are coordinating to, if you own Bitcoin and you don't give it up in our executive order 6102, there's a $250,000 fine or 10 years in jail, right? If every major country does that around the world, I don't know if there's that many people who uproot their lives and move to El Salvador in order to keep their Bitcoin. So that could maybe suppress price for a long time, but eventually that breaks too, right? So I don't think that's even a worthy discussion, really. It seems so unlikely to me.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Because I think there's a lot of politicians out there that wouldn't be talking about it publicly, but have a little bit behind the scenes. There's a lot of people out there in high places, that have a lot of Bitcoin. And then that being said, if BlackRock's coming in now, I know they're going to be selling a different type with this ETF, a different type of Bitcoin. It's not real kind of Bitcoin. It's like a paper Bitcoin, is maybe I call it. I think they'd be killing the business, really. We shoot themselves in the foot or in the head.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem to be going that way either. It's going the opposite way, right? With the SEC looking closer at it and coming to favorable decisions rather than not classifying it as a security or anything like that. Kind of interesting. There's actually we have a liberal politician in Canada here who on Halloween, on White Paper Day, he gave a speech right there in Parliament in the House of Commons.
I seen that actually. Yeah, I seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a liberal, right? You would think that liberals are, anti Bitcoin, but they're not. There's a lot of progressive Bitcoiners out there too. But he's actually going to be speaking at the conference. He's agreed to come and give us a little talk about his perspective. Some people got like up in arms about that. They're like, "Oh, you're having the enemy, the liberals, the communists come." It's like, he's a Bitcoiner. Come on, like Bitcoiners are people too. They're all going to be different with their different thoughts and things like that. And nobody's perfect, right? You gotta keep the thought that maybe we're the wrong ones, right? Maybe those progressives are right. Who knows?
Yeah, we're gonna see the day when bleeding Larry Fink is up there, probably on a stage somewhere talking about it. I'm telling you, that's just gonna happen. I can just see all that happening. This time next year, 2024, probably towards the end of 2024, all the suits and the boots, will be on CNN and CNBC. They'll all be up there, just blowing the trumpet about Bitcoin. I can just see a whole change coming. you know.
Yeah.
That's what I can see, you know. But we'll see how it
Actually,
goes.
yeah, I was actually just gonna say, I think Charlie Munger is passing, whatever that was, 2, 3 weeks ago.
Mm.
Those type of things are kind of like big steps for Bitcoin too. You know, when anti-Bitcoin people pass away, right? So he was 99 years old, I think. But then Warren Buffett is the other very famous one. So once he passes away too, it's kind of like the end of an era. It's like, okay, that's the old way of investing and thinking about things. And then it's going to be Nancy Pelosi or Elizabeth Warren, right? Who's very anti self custody and everything like that. They're pretty old. These guys are old people. When they pass
Yeah,
away or when they retire and kind of fade off into obscurity, it leaves the Bitcoiners left too, right? So I think
yeah,
it's just a time.
definitely. There was another big investor as well that passed, I think a week after Charlie Munger.
Oh, no, you're thinking of Henry Kissinger.
Oh yeah, Henry Kissinger. Yeah. But he was big as well. He was a big statesman, you know, Kissinger, wasn't he? He was a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
investor as well. You know what I mean?
What was that? Sorry.
He would have been a big investor as well. He was a very wealthy person,
Yeah, it
Kissinger.
must have been. Yeah, yeah. I think just all this like the old guard is passing.
Yeah, but uh,
Yeah.
probably a lot of people don't know probably as well. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are the biggest shareholders in that bank in Brazil. You know that Neo Bank or Nia Bank,
Mhm.
and they're pushing for. Brazil is really talking about doing more Bitcoin adoption, and I've seen reports from that bank saying that they want to try and be the biggest Bitcoin custodian bank in Brazil. So they're coming in the back door anyway.
Yeah.
They'll be custodian the Bitcoin. So they'll have possession of it. So if the bank
Yeah.
goes down, who gets the
Yeah.
Bitcoin?
Maybe that's what we'll see this bull cycle. It's like, okay, Warren Buffett announced that he's been accumulating Bitcoin for the past quarter. Do
Yeah,
you imagine?
yeah. I seen as well something only this week that some of the ex-directors, executives from Credit Suisse in Europe that just went down at the summer, they're after starting up a new trading firm for banks and big retail people. That was only announced this week. I think yesterday it was announced as well that the president or the prime minister of Montenegro is buying Bitcoin and he's keeping it for himself. Like he's buying it for himself personally. So things are happening out there.
Hmm. You're making me really bullish. I gotta go. I already stacked this paycheck. I'm gonna have to go use my line of credit a little bit or something after this.
Keep stacking. You've got to the end of January, I think. I can see next year, right? With this going the way it's going, or even 2025, most single digit millionaires being out of buying Bitcoin. Because a lot of single digit millionaires have uh, built up their wealth through property.
Hmm.
Okay. Now they can't liquidate a bedroom out of a house to buy
Hmm.
Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
a lot of these are emotionally attached to their properties, right?
Hmm.
They're not going
Yeah.
to sell one of those properties in the next couple of months. It takes about 6 months really to offload a property. Yeah.
Hmm.
So by the time all these ETFs launch and the money
Hmm.
starts pouring in, and going to be pouring in so fast and so hard, it's going to push the price to whatever,
Hmm.
you know, it's going to be harder for these single digit millionaires to accumulate and get one Bitcoin.
Yeah. I think accumulating one Bitcoin. This is like probably the last cycle anyone can do it. Really, right? Any normal, middle upper class person is going to be priced out of owning one Bitcoin in the next cycle, in my opinion. Because even if it's like, so it's whatever, 40K right now, even if it's 200,000, if you're a millionaire and it's not property, let's say you have $1 million stock portfolio, you're not liquidating 20% for one holding, right? People don't really do that, right? And if
They
they do,
don't.
it's one holding is going to be Apple or something that's really has a long history of being seen as bulletproof and super safe, right? People aren't doing that with something new until they see it, and learn more about it. And it's just, I don't think it's going to be happening much this cycle. Definitely in the next cycle after that, that's when it really, it's like, the meme where it's like the two girls and kind of going like this, like, and they say, oh, I heard he's a whole coiner or something like that. Like, I think cycle after next, that's going to be reality.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But that being said, I think it could be sooner than that, from what I'm seeing anyway. It's gonna be fun and games though, isn't it? It's all fun, isn't it? We got in at the right time. We've done our work. The plebs done their work. We're ahead of the game. We just need to try and paddle.
Absolutely.
And don't be selling your Bitcoin to any of these ETF people, these big boys, because they will be coming out offering. The price is gonna go up and hold it for a few more years. For as long as you can, or as Michael Saylor says, hold it. Start making 100-year plan if you can.
Yeah, I'm already sitting the base. I'm in my basement right now. When we bought it was like a moldy mess and unusable because it's just a mess down here. I didn't sell Bitcoin to get it finished, but I had to pay money obviously to get it finished. Ended up costing, I think, like 60,000 Canadian dollars or something like that. It's basically what one Bitcoin costs right now. So I'm just gonna keep that in my head, and over the years see how much I regret getting my basement done and just saying, oh, I should have just went to the office to work instead of wanting to work from home. I should have just lived in a 1-floor house and not cared about the basement. But we'll see how much this basement will really cost me in the end of the day.
Yeah, very interesting. All right then, great chatting with you. Yeah. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, want to follow you, where can they get you? What's your Twitter handle? Or if you want to find out about the event that's coming up?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm just Plate Licker _21M. But what I want to share more is just the conference, right? So
we'll start doing a bit about the conference there as well. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's Canadian Bitcoin Conf, so CONF.com, right?
You want to share the website there, do you?
Oh yeah, I can share it, right? Forgot.
Share the website. Share the screen.
Yes, let's do that. Bear with me. I'm used to using Teams. I don't use Zoom quite as much. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so here's the website. So you can go here. We're going to be posting the agenda within the next couple weeks. But what you can do is you can see all the details on the venue, right? All of our sponsors and our like last year's speakers and everything like that. So you can see we had lots of sponsors, great companies that will work with us. One of the best things about Bitcoin too is there's just so many great companies that want to help, right? Everybody believes in Bitcoin. They want to further Bitcoin. There's the obvious people working to build their own wealth, but then there's kind of the altruism of I want to help Bitcoin to improve the world too. So it's really nice working in Bitcoin. So go here, CanadianBitcoinConf.com. We have early bird pricing, but that is over on Sunday. So basically, you have 2 days to get in with the cheaper prices. From there, it goes up. It's going to go up a couple more times before May when the conference actually comes around. But yeah, get in there soon while you still can. It's like Bitcoin; you got to buy it sooner if you want to get in for a better price. The other one is just follow us on Twitter too. So we are CDN Bitcoin Conf, so at CDN Bitcoin CONF. So you can follow us there. I run that account sometimes, but it's mostly Dan. But yeah, see us there. We'll be announcing speakers soon as we release our agenda. We haven't really announced anybody yet, but we have some very high profile big speakers I'm excited to share with everybody. And that's going to be coming over the next couple of weeks.
Amazing. Maybe we'll get you on before the event, maybe for another chat. Yeah. And maybe Dan as well. Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll drop all the links in the video below, and we will talk soon. Yeah, so zooming out from Dublin in Ireland to all the Canadian people out there, everybody around the world, and thank you.
Awesome.